Back to 1925 Montana, we have a range belongs to two almost different brothers. One who is always angry and aggressive but more active on the field named Phil. The other one who is milder and kinder, George. They both don't have any problem with each other until an attractive woman gets married with George and enters their glorious house. It turns the situation to the turmoil. Afterwards, Rose, that sensitive woman, becomes an easy target for repressive, misogynistic, and offensive behaviors of Phil. Phil suffers something we don't know, but there are several clues partially justify his semi-psychic attitudes. I don't reveal them, but only inform that Phil, despite his rough, harsh appearance, has a fragile character. For such a cowboy, Benedict Cumberbatch may be the last choice. Here his acting is good, but not the best of his career. I'm always fascinated more by his British roles. They have a delicate sense of genuineness. Among cast, let me mention the acting of Cody Smith McPhee, a teenage boy who plays Peter, tall skinny son of Rose who often has been ridiculed by Phil and his men. As film progresses, he attracts Phil's attention, suspiciously by his intelligence and ingenuity. He's completely effective in the plotline, and if he couldn't play the role properly, the movie would be damaged severely. Thanks to him, we can enjoy seeing a novel, convincing, extravagant character. It's hard to review this movie in a straight way. It contains lots of things: love, scare, hate, anger, masculinity, revenge, range, animals, dogs, and power of the dog. Also magical nature. We can resist being amazed by that wonderful vivid scenes from the pristine nature of New Zealand, the location of filming, surrounding that lonely house placed between mountains far from the city. It is nature what actually does 80% of cinematography, although choosing that is a remarkable decision of director of cinematography, Ari Wegner. We see four main characters and one as important as them is unseen. Bronco Henry feels like Menta is here and there. Here in the barn his saddle is being kept and cleaned cautiously and lovely touched by Fell, as well as there, at the middle of remote mountains, his previous discovery of the figure of a dog is being watched frequently and nostalgically by Fell. No one in the ranch could recognize that ghostly figure except Bronco Henry and his disciple Fell. However, we are surprised like Fell when Pete immediately discerns that image. A barking dog. Before explaining what happens next, it will be interesting for us to try to discover that figure too. If you found it, comment me below. I give you 5 seconds to look at the mountains, then show the answer. Now. Here it is, not too hard, but very tempting. This scene is the first time we hear about a dog, although it's figurative. Still can't understand the movie title. Power of the dog. What power does that dog figure have? I want to reveal some movie details now, so if you haven't watched that, skip this part. Phil's annoying behaviors toward Rose never end. She's becoming depressed and being pushed to alcoholism. Her son Peter, whose voiceover is heard at the opening credits, wants nothing more than his mother's happiness. But there's an obvious obstacle who seems irremovable. Phil. Removing obstacles is a lesson Peter's father had taught him as he tells Phil. When they together have gone somewhere within the hills to build something. It's a precious advice used carefully and masterfully by Peter against Phil. When Phil understands that Rose has given his beloved hides to an Indian, becomes outraged. He needs a hide to finish the rope. Peter offers him a hide which he claims he has cut by himself, without telling that the hide is from a dead cow with anthrax. Phil accepts, appreciates Pete's offer, and is really impressed by his kindness. At night they both gather in the barn to finish the rope while Phil's hand with open wound touches infected hide several times. Next morning, George takes Phil to city for treatment, but the disease gets worse and he dies of anthrax. Then we see Peter reading a King James Bible. Burial of the dead part. Psalm chapter 22, verse 20. Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. It's a quotation attributed to David following that famous verse of David which Jesus has repeated during crucifixion. My God, why have you forsaken me? In the verse, sword refers to enemy, my darling refers to David's own life, and power of the dog refers to power of Satan. There are various other interpretations of that verse, but I think these references are more relevant to the movie. We can easily find connotations for them in the movie. The sword refers to Fel, my darling throws, and power of the dog to Fel's satanic strength, and Peter is the one who prays to save his darling, his mother. Although he prays or just reads the verses, he acts by himself and doesn't wait for God to respond. There's also a resemblance between Peter fighting with Fel and David fighting with Goliath. Both Peter and David are young who have to fight with older experienced vigorous men, and finally both win. Until the last scene we are unaware of what has exactly happened. We're suspicious but not sure. I had a plan in my mind for a long time to make a movie that has a mystery in itself which isn't revealed until just the last scene comes, not even a scene sooner or later. When I heard of Seven, directed by David Fincher, thought this movie is what I looked for. After watching, I realized I was wrong because revealing the mystery or twist is located one scene before the end scene. But the power of the dog spoiled my plan. At the last scene, Peter takes the infected robe with gloves and hides them at the bottom of the bed, then goes near the window watching his lovely mother kisses her husband without scaring any more of a monster called Fel. This is the only scene where we know the truth. After explaining the movie ending, it's worth reviewing another outstanding scene, where Fel and Peter start smoking at the barn. Peter lights a cigarette, begins to smoke, then puts it on the Fel's lip. Phil is surprised but accepts Peter's favor. Again, Peter smokes and again keeps the cigarette for Phil to smoke. It's stirring to know that this is a part of a plan of murder. Peter doesn't give cigarette to Phil so that doesn't touch his infected hands. Conversely, Phil thinks it's a sign of Peter's love for him to keep the cigarette. We like Phil were misled too, thinking this is a romantic scene. Actually, it was a perfect cruel plan of murder designed by a genius called Peter. Power of the Dog is a plain story with obvious logic, although there are two instances destroying that logic. First, George practically isn't engaged in business affairs. The ranch is totally handled by Phil. In these circumstances we expect Phil to complain, but he didn't. Second, when Peter calls Phil say, he severely reacts and tells Peter forget the Sarah stuff. But we hear more than once of the workers call Phil say. It isn't acceptable if we suppose that this level of intimacy has just given to Peter and still not given to his old workers. There are also astonishing details. Remember the scene where Pete has come to the ranch recently and all the workers start mocking him with their horses. A black and white dog is barking at him and nearly attacking him. When Phil whistles, that dog goes. Again, after the death of Phil, we see Peter and that dog around him, with apparently good relationship between them. It seems that the power of the dog has transferred from Phil to his killer, Peter. Thanks for watching.